Viraj, Patel, let me bring you in here on what President Trump was saying about the Fed and rates. Given what he said, is there a chance that the Fed is actually more likely to stick to its rate hiking path to give the impression that it does have its own independence?
Well, it certainly will. I don't think the Fed, and I think they'll respect their independence, it won't derail what the Fed have told us. It may just sow a bit of seeds of doubt into the markets, and that's the key here. And remember a couple of months ago we were talking about sort of the dollar decoupling from rate spreads? Well, we might start to see signs of that again. Look, for us, the political economy of the dollar is a medium-term negative for the currency, but it's all about timing that. And so one of the major differences between today and January, when the dollar slid 5% back on the Treasury's comments about the dollar, is that the structural factors in the rest of the world are a lot weaker. So the euro, the yen, the yuan, the downside risks there are equally as compelling. So it just knocks FX markets back into range trading for us.
Marty, I want to get back on the Washington mill here, and that was really topping it all yesterday afternoon. I could barely keep up with the zeitgeist, and that was, as you mentioned, the interview of Andrea Mitchell over at MSNBC, the panel discussion, rather, with Mr. Coates out in Aspen. Folks, let's listen in to the National Security Director.
It's undeniable that the Russians are taking the lead on this. They are the ones that are trying to wreak havoc over our election process. We need to call them out on that. It's critical that we do so.
Dan Coates, hugely respected across both parties, and he was stunned, Marty, at his lack of information about something as germane as the president of Russia coming to Washington. Marty, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you yesterday, and I think I asked it the day before. When do we start seeing resignations? It's
a great question, Tom. I asked myself that yesterday, not only about Dan Coates, but about the Fed. Words have consequences. There are many people in this administration who I'm sure think they're doing the patriotic thing by sticking with it and making sure it doesn't run off the rails. But at some point, these people will have lives outside of Donald Trump, and how this damages their reputation is something they must be thinking about.
Let's circle back to Mr. Trump and Fed independence. Here's Lawrence Summers after the CNBC interview yesterday, Marty. I thought this was absolutely extraordinary. Attacking central bank is one more step in what seems like a presidential strategy of turning the United States into a banana republic. And then Larry Summers, a former Treasury Secretary, president of Harvard, clearly Democratic persuasion, says, what's next? Tariffs, attacks on individual companies, big tax cuts for friends, demonization of immigrants, gaudy decoration of presidential aircraft, government staffed by generals, politicizing law enforcement, economic policies to enrich the first family. Marty, Mr. Summers was on a roll, to say the least.
Yeah, well, and Larry Summers is very good at that. Yeah. And let's not forget, he's a Democrat, and he has been opposed to Donald Trump from the outset. But it does raise questions. I mean, what is the next convention that Donald Trump will blow up? And inviting Vladimir Putin to the White House when dozens of institutions in Russia and individuals are under sanction is one more thing that makes this presidency so unique.
Viraj, you were talking earlier about timing the politics. What specifically are you going to be looking for from the president or from other people from here in terms of how it might affect your view on the dollar or other currencies?
Well, I think these uncertainties are going to be with us for the rest of the president's time. So I think there's this sort of false sense that maybe some of the trade rhetoric may die down after the midterm elections. Probably not. In actual fact, this is with us. So for us, we're looking at the political risks and the economic risks elsewhere. Can we start to put capital back at work in the rest of the world in more attractive destinations? That story has been hit, admittedly, but it's just waiting for that dynamic, because the economic uncertainty and the political uncertainty in the dollar is there to stay.